This is great. The cat boat with the cat.
Hello, welcome to Koehler Kraft Company Boatyard. We're inside the boat shed where great things happen to old, wonderful boats like this cat boat right here. And we're going to talk a little bit about what we're doing to the cat boat, just a quick overview on the project, and kind of a little bit of the boat's history in San Diego. So the cat boat is not regularly seen in Southern California because we have plenty of deep water. Where the water is skinny on the eastern seaboard, especially in the northeast, they're quite popular. This little boat draws just under 3 feet of water with the board up. But they're kind of cool little boats, and I remember this boat when she was in San Diego many years ago called the Elle. As a kid, I thought it was a cool boat. They're kind of short and fat. One big mainsail with the gaffs weighed up all the way to the top. It's kind of an impressive sailing machine. So let's talk a little bit about what we're doing to the project. She was in pretty rough shape when we got her. We put her on the building floor. We were able to get a complete set of plans from the builder, or the designer rather. And with that, we were able to get her reasonably straight and measuring out close to the original plans. At that point, we created some as-built notes on the drawings, and then we removed every other plank from the hull. That allowed us to have what, when she was built, like rib bands around molds. Leaving every other existing frame in place, we cut off the frames that where they were bad, cut a long scarf joint, and then laminated new frames in using the old planks that were left as molds to form the laminated ribs. We were able to reach through the gaps with a C-clamp and clamp the laminated frames in place. Once we did that, we replaced some of the centerboard trunk structure, rebuilt that, a couple little Dutchmen and repairs in the backbone, and then we replanked her. A little bit different planking method than common. Originally the planks were fit, and then once all the planking was complete, cotton was driven in between each plank to seal them up. What we've been doing for many years now to great success is we fit the plank, and then before it's put on, we coat the inside of the plank with epoxy to seal it, and then we screw and glue the plank to the frame. Subsequent planks, the seams are glued together as we go. So essentially, the boat becomes a glued together monocoque skin hull. It's very, very strong. The planking is sealed inside it and out with epoxy. It doesn't shrink or swell, keeps the water out, keeps the oxygen out. The two enemies of the wood structure have been minimized. One of the nice aspects of it is the boat doesn't absorb water and get heavy over the years. Another real nice thing is you don't have the musty smell inside the boat because the water is not absorbed into the wood structure anymore, so it's nice and dry and tight. And since epoxy is 100% solids and no solvent, you don't even have the solvent smell that you would on an FRP type hull. Typically where the boat goes south, where the structure goes south, is below the waterline, where it's soaking in water all the time. So what we did was where the rib was below the waterline, and also where it started to make a big bend and had a lot of stress on it, is where it broke. We took that frame, that rib, out of the boat, but we left this one here and this one here. So every other frame we were going to work on first, okay? We had also every other plank off. So this plank was here, this one was missing. This plank was here, this one was missing. When you build a boat, you put temporary planks on, leaving a space in between. So what that allowed us to do was made it easier, of course, to take the old rib out, but it also allowed us to leave a lot of the interior and structure in place without demoing that out, because most people don't understand that building out the interior of the boat and the deck and the house and all the pieces and parts is the biggest part of the job. building the hull, putting the planks and frames together, that's easy. That's like framing up a house. That goes real quick. People see the boat get planked up and go, oh, you're almost done. No, about the first third of the project's done. By leaving all the other structure and everything in place, the boat was fairly stable once it was blocked up on the floor, and we were able to take every other plank off, and that allowed us to reach up inside and do the surgery from the outside rather than from the inside. I'm going to recommend to the owner when we get together that we might make some slight modifications to the cabin arrangement to better suit the use that the boat will have. I'm hoping we can get in the water sometime this fall, but with the pandemic, it's hard to predict everything. Things are very fluid. Right now, I believe I have all the materials I need to finish the structural rebuild of the boat. However, we are going to be installing an electric drive unit to replace the gasoline engine that was in there, and I don't know how readily available that is. The idea of having an electric drive instead of the gasoline inboard engine has a couple advantages. One, since the boat probably is not going to do any long-range cruising anymore, having an engine that can run for a day on a tank of fuel is not necessary. And by having the electric drive, of course, for the obvious environmental reasons, the electric drive's almost silent. It's a much lower profile in height. So what that means is that the engine or the electric drive setup can be completely below the surface of the cockpit sole. Before, there was a box around the engine, and it was kind of an inconvenient trip hazard in the middle of the cockpit. And now that can go away. I think weight-wise will probably be about the same. We're not going to put a lot of batteries in the boat because we don't need a tremendous amount of range. It is a sailboat after all. The idea of the electric drive is just so that the boat can get away from the dock when conditions are not practical to sail in and out of the dock. And if the wind dies, of course, you can come back home. I don't imagine the boat would go any further than San Diego Bay, so a couple hours of motoring endurance would be more than enough. Not having gasoline or any other things in the boat will, of course, make it a lot safer. We don't need an intake for cooling water, and we don't need an exhaust, so that's a real good advantage. And then we don't have to have deck fittings and a space for a fuel tank. So it's something I always enjoy when we get a rebuild project is when we can actually get the original drawings. This is a construction plan. Just kind of gives us an idea of how the basic structure is to be built. Gives you some typical cross sections. This is the cabin plan. So this shows the original layout. The galley over here on the port side. Toilet underneath a seat. Has a fold down sink or that drains into the toilet, or sometimes you call it a Pullman sink. Kind of cool. The boat is owned by a philanthropic foundation, but it's my understanding the boat will be in San Diego, and that the idea is to preserve this historic boat.